Gopalakrishnan belongs to a new breed of technocrats. Having lived and worked in two very, very different countries, he talks about his experience and how the basic fundamental rights in India have been taken for granted. But still, there is a lot of progress and development for which India stands as a shining example. All because there is some order in all the chaos. Jai Hind.
I was born after India was become a republic in the early 50s. So the first encounter of the rights of the people, is that as a child, as a school child, we witnessed some strikes in our school. There was a people movement. They were struggling against the elected government of the state at that time. I was not aware of what is happening. We could see that where classes are disrupted, people were going on processions, shouting slogans. But later on, I came to know that this was a struggle by the vested interests against the elected government of Kerala. So this history is like this. The Kerala was formed in 1956. Uh, then in 1957, the first elections of the United Kerala happened, and in that election, the communist government, probably that is a democratically elected government, first time, probably in the history of whole world, or at least in the history of India. That was the time a communist government came into position. Now, this government was it was led by EMS Namboodiripad. He was a stalwart of the communists, and then they did bring a lot of changes, landmark laws into the country. One of them was the Land Reforms Act. So, in the Land Reforms Act, what they did is they abolished the feudal system. That is the Jamindars, or we call it Janmi in Kerala, who were the landlords. Their rights to hold the land were eliminated, and the land was redistributed to the poor, the peasants, the peasantry or the working laborers. So even the landless workers, they got at least about 10 cents of land. So people became landowners. That was a massive movement. The feudal system collapsed immediately after that. Then they brought in another landmark judgment that was about the education. So what at that time the education was dominated by the private sector, mainly the Christian church controlled schools. They were controlling the educational system. So what government did is they kind of took over. They did not take over the management of the schools. What they did is they take over the appointment of teachers. There was a lot of corruption, in that process of appointment of teachers. The jobs were not available. So if you want to be a teacher, you had to pay a huge amount of money to the management to get a job as a teacher. So this was the government wanted to abolish this. They improved the working condition of the teachers, but this somehow irritated the religious religious the groups, especially the Catholic management who were running many schools, and they somehow collaborated with the Hindus, the Hindu upper class sections. They also were running some schools, and slowly they consolidated the opposition movement, and they started the struggle, and somehow they convinced a lot of people to go against the government. Ultimately, in 1959, that government was dismissed by the central government by using of Article 356. Probably, if you look back, I don't know, in Indian history, there was a time a elected government was dismissed by the central government due to an uprising. It never happened, as far as I know. If there is a opposition about a government, the dismissal of the government did not happen. But this is the first time that happened, and it was a mistake. So that was my first experience with the government. That the rights of the people and how that right was violated by central government. I was not aware of it. I came to know of this much later, but that was my first witness. The second instance, I grew up I studied, all my studies was in Kerala. Then around 1975, when I was about finishing my studies, the emergency came upon us. A gross violation of our civil rights happened. Newspapers were, censored. Politicians were jailed, and I landed up a job in Calcutta at that time, West Bengal. So I moved to West Bengal. I saw the repercussions of the emergency very much there. The people were brutalized in the sense there is no opposition for any activity. The one thing that I remember, the newspaper Statesman, we used to get sometimes with the editorial page completely blank, or the page allotted to the cartoon section, cartoons, there was a central cartoon at the opinion page that will be blank. That was a period. And then in 1977, emergency was abolished, but the great damage was already been done. The society has, kind of accepted this suppression of their liberties. I think they come to accept probably, the resistance. Some people are continuing resisting, but majority they seem to be losing that right. Then soon afterwards, I moved, to a foreign country. I went to Saudi Arabia first as an employee, and in Saudi Arabia, what we see is a totally different type of government. It's a monarchy. You can call it a benevolent monarchy in some extent, but then everything is controlled by the state, by the government. When you are going as an expatriate, you do not have any civil rights there. The local citizens, you do not interact much with the local citizens, but again, they also do not have much civil rights in the sense you will not see any protest or any opposition to the rulers. The government doles out large sums of money to their citizens. They take care of them. So it's a comfortable life. People are not opposing. But we know that there is some opposition in some groups, but it's there is some religious differences between some groups, but they were not coming up. But later on, we can see that the Saudi Arabia became an epicenter for the terrorist activities. So we could see that resistance of some people developing into a terrorism kind of activity later on. Firstly, in the beginning, it was among the citizens of the different groups, but then it was kind of exported. Osama bin Laden and the Al Qaeda and all was a result of that suppression, I would say, that from the ruler. Then I moved from Saudi Arabia to UAE. UAE can be called a popular and benevolent monarchy. We do not see much opposition even from the local citizens. They loved their government, their popular government. There is some control in their, the opinion, that is newspaper. You cannot really criticize the government, and also any news item criticizing the government was not allowed to publish. Other than that, the citizens were taken very good care. Not only the citizens, even the foreigners who are living there, their rights, their religious rights. In one way, we could see that the religious freedom that you get in UAE, which is a Muslim country, is very, very, very good in the sense you are worshipping your own religion and not criticizing other religion. As long as you do that, you have no issues. It was a free country that way. Your rights were protected. If anybody violating those rights, the police will take an impartial, the action against the people. It was a very good welfare state, you could say, a real theoretical welfare state, you could say. But then they do not allow protests. Any action by the government on environmental activity, nobody could protest. They will implement it. So whether it is good or not, the citizens have to decide. Then I think I worked in the Gulf for nearly 35 years. After retirement, I moved back to India. Now coming to the present day, you can see that our rights, the constitutional rights continuously being diminished. The opportunity for protest is almost no longer there. Probably the youngsters do not care also as much as we do in our younger days, in our generation. probably. So the people's rights are now taken for a ride. So what is our rights under constitution? What are how these rights are protected? Unless the people, fight for these rights, I think in another 10 or 20 years, I don't know whether we will remain a republic. We have to see.